The old Victorian house stood on a hill overlooking the town, a grand dame, weathered and forgotten. John and Mary, young and in love, saw potential, not decay. It was their dream home, a steal at the price. Little did they know, some dreams turn nightmares. The moving truck rumbled away, leaving them alone. Excitement mingled with apprehension. The air inside felt heavy, stagnant. They unpacked boxes, their laughter echoing in the emptiness. As dusk settled, shadows crept across the lawn. John lit a fire in the hearth, the flames casting flickering light on Mary's face. She looked up from her book, a shiver running down her spine. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. "Hear what?" John asked, his brow furrowed. "A whisper," Mary replied, her eyes wide with fear, "like someone's right behind me." John dismissed it as the wind whistling through the old house. But as the night deepened, the whispers returned, soft, indistinct murmurs, seeming to come from the walls themselves. They followed John and Mary as they moved through the house, always just out of reach. Sleep was impossible. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind sent their hearts racing. They clung to each other in the darkness, fear a tangible presence in the room. Morning brought a fragile sense of relief. Sunlight streamed through the dusty windows, chasing away the shadows. The whispers were gone. Had they imagined it all? A trick of the mind, fueled by exhaustion and the strangeness of a new place? They tried to convince themselves it was nothing. But as soon as darkness fell again, the whispers returned, more insistent, more chilling. The whispers became a nightly torment. They seemed to move, circling them, toying with them. John, a man of logic, refused to believe in ghosts. He was determined to find a rational explanation. He checked every nook and cranny, searching for drafts, for faulty wiring, for anything that could explain the sounds. Mary, her nerves frayed, wandered the house with a haunted look in her eyes. The whispers seemed to draw her, beckoning her towards the unknown. One night the whispers led them to the basement door. It was a heavy oak door bolted shut. John struggled with the rusty lock, his heart pounding in his chest. As the door creaked open, a musty smell wafted out, carrying with it the faint sound of sobbing. Mary grabbed John's arm, her fingers digging into his flesh. "Don't go down there," she pleaded. But John, his curiosity overriding his fear, stepped into the darkness. The basement was vast and dark, the air thick with the smell of damp earth and decay. John fumbled for the light switch, his hand closing on cobwebs and dust. A single bulb flickered to life, casting a weak yellow glow. Cobwebs hung from every corner, and the stone walls were slick with moisture. In the center of the room, John saw it, a trapdoor, partially concealed by debris. The whispers seemed to emanate from the trapdoor, louder now, more urgent. He knelt down, his hand trembling as he reached for the handle. It was cold, damp, and covered in something that felt disturbingly like dried blood. He hesitated for a moment, fear warring with his desire to uncover the truth. Taking a deep breath, John threw open the trapdoor. A gust of cold, stale air rushed out, carrying with it the overwhelming stench of decay and the faint, sweet aroma of jasmine. At the bottom of the stairs, he saw a faint light, like a single candle flame. John descended cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. The stairs creaked under his weight, the sound echoing eerily in the confined space. As he reached the bottom, he saw that the light came from a lantern placed on the floor of a small, dirt-floored room. The room was empty, except for a small wooden table and a chair. On the table lay a leather-bound diary, its pages yellowed with age. John reached for it, his fingers brushing against something cold and metallic. It was a locket, its silver, tarnished, but still beautiful. He picked it up, his fingers tracing the intricate design. As he turned it over, he saw that it was engraved with a single word, Eleanor. The name sent a shiver down his spine. He had a sudden, overwhelming feeling that he was treading on sacred ground. John opened the diary and began to read. The handwriting was elegant, almost calligraphic. The first entry was dated July 12th, 1889. "My name is Eleanor," it began, "and this is the story of my life and my death." Eleanor's words painted a picture of a life filled with both joy and sorrow. She wrote of her childhood in the Victorian house, her loving parents, her dreams of becoming a writer. But her idyllic life was shattered when her parents died within months of each other, leaving her orphaned and alone at the age of 17. She wrote of her grief, her loneliness, and the growing sense of dread that began to consume her. The whispers had started soon after her parents' death, faint at first but growing stronger with each passing day. They seemed to taunt her, to mock her pain. Eleanor believed that the whispers were the voices of the dead, trapped within the walls of the house. She wrote of her attempts to communicate with them, to understand their pain, but her efforts only seemed to anger them, to make the whispers louder, more insistent. As John read, he felt a growing sense of unease. Eleanor's words were filled with a palpable sense of fear, of impending doom. He could almost hear her voice whispering to him from beyond the grave. Then came the entry that chilled John to the bone. Eleanor had fallen in love with a young man from the town. Their love was forbidden, deemed unsuitable by her guardian. She wrote of their secret meetings, their stolen kisses, their plans for a future together. But their happiness was short-lived. Eleanor discovered she was pregnant. Desperate to protect her unborn child from the scorn of society, she confided in a trusted friend, a woman she believed to be her ally, but the woman betrayed her, revealing her secret to her guardian. Enraged, her guardian locked her away in the basement, determined to keep her hidden until the child was born. He swore that the child would never see the light of day, that it would be taken away and raised as his own. Eleanor was trapped, her pleas for mercy falling on deaf ears. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Eleanor gave birth to a baby girl, a tiny, perfect being she named Hope. But her joy was short-lived. Her guardian, true to his word, ripped the child from her arms, leaving her heartbroken and alone. John's blood ran cold as he read Eleanor's final entry. "They have taken my hope," she wrote, her words a jumbled mess of despair and rage. "The whispers are deafening now, but they offer no comfort. I can feel myself slipping away, my life ebbing with each passing hour. Soon I will join the voices in the walls, another lost soul trapped in this prison of stone. But even in death I will not rest. I will search for my hope, and I will haunt this house until the day she is returned to me." John closed the diary, his mind reeling. He looked around the small room, his heart heavy with sadness and a growing sense of dread. He knew he had to tell Mary, but he didn't know how to explain what he had found. As he stood up to leave, he noticed something he hadn't seen before. Scratched into the dirt floor next to the table were 3 words: "He took her." John rushed back up the stairs, his mind racing. He burst into the living room, where Mary sat huddled on the sofa, her eyes wide with fear. She looked up as he entered, her voice trembling as she asked, "What did you find down there?" John hesitated, unsure how to begin. He took a deep breath and said, "I found a diary. It belonged to a young woman named Eleanor." He told her everything, from Eleanor's tragic love affair to the birth of her child, to her imprisonment in the basement. Mary listened in horrified silence, her hand flying to her mouth as John described the baby girl, Hope, being torn from her mother's arms. When he finished, a heavy silence fell over the room. The only sound was the crackling of the fire and the faint, rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Suddenly Mary's eyes widened. She grabbed John's arm, her fingers digging into his flesh. "John," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the crackling fire. "Don't you see? The whispers, the diary, the locket, it's all connected." John stared at her, his brow furrowed. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice tight with apprehension. "The whispers," Mary repeated, her voice trembling. "They're not just random voices. They're trying to tell us something." A cold dread washed over John as he realized the truth in Mary's words. The whispers weren't just a haunting, they were a warning, a plea for help. Eleanor's spirit, trapped within the walls of the house, was trying to tell them what had happened to her baby. The house seemed to close in on them, the air growing thick with unseen menace. The whispers intensified, swirling around them like a malevolent wind. John could almost hear Eleanor's voice, filled with anguish and rage, echoing through the centuries. As they stood there, paralyzed by fear, the floor beneath them gave way. They plunged into the darkness, swallowed whole by the house that had once held so much promise. The whispers surrounded them, no longer a warning, but a triumphant chorus of despair. John and Mary were gone, vanished without a trace. The old Victorian house stood silent once more, its secrets buried deep within its walls. But the whispers remained, a chilling reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded within its walls and the innocent soul forever lost.